A small voice, a big heart. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across Maple Street as Jake wiped his hands on an old rag. His small auto repair shop sat on the corner, weathered but welcoming, with a hand-painted sign that read Henderson's Honest Repairs. It wasn't much to look at, but it had been home to Jake for the past 3 years. Ever since he'd moved to this quiet neighborhood with his 5-year-old daughter, Emma. Jake had learned early that being a single father meant wearing many hats: mechanic, cook, storyteller, nurse, and friend, all rolled into one. Some days were harder than others, but Emma's bright smile and endless chatter made every challenge worth it. She often spent afternoons at the shop, coloring at the small desk Jake had set up in the corner, or watching him work with curious eyes that mirrored his own deep brown color. Today had been particularly slow. Only one customer had stopped by, Mrs. Patterson, with her ancient Honda that needed an oil change. Jake was just closing up when he heard the distinctive sound of a car engine struggling. The noise grew louder, punctuated by a concerning grinding sound that made Jake wince. Every mechanic knew that sound meant trouble. A sleek black sedan limped into his parking lot, steam rising from under the hood like a distress signal. Jake stepped outside, already reaching for his toolbox out of habit. The driver's door opened, and out stepped a woman who looked frazzled and worried. She had long blonde hair that caught the late afternoon light, and she wore business attire that suggested she'd been caught off guard by this mechanical failure. "I'm sorry to bother you so late," she called out, her voice carrying a note of desperation. "I was driving by when my car just started making this terrible noise. I pulled over as soon as I could, but now it won't start at all." Jake approached, with the easy confidence of someone who'd seen every possible car problem. "No bother at all. I'm Jake, let me take a look." "I'm Sarah," she replied, extending her hand with a grateful smile. "I really appreciate this. I was supposed to pick up my daughter from her friend's house 20 minutes ago." As Jake popped the hood, releasing a cloud of steam and the acrid smell of overheated metal, a small voice piped up from inside the car. "Mama, is the car broken?" Jake glanced through the open window and saw a little girl with pigtails, probably around Emma's age, looking worried in the back seat. She had the same blonde hair as her mother and wore a pink sweater that made her look like a small flower. "Just a little hiccup, sweetheart," Sarah assured her daughter. "This nice man is going to help us." Jake leaned over the engine, his trained eye quickly identifying the problem. "Your radiator hose burst," he explained to Sarah. "It's not too serious, but you definitely can't drive it like this. The good news is I have the part you need right here in the shop." Sarah's shoulders sagged with relief, then tensed again. "How much will this cost?" "I have to be honest, money's been tight lately." Jake understood that feeling all too well. He remembered the early days after Emma's mother had left, when every unexpected expense felt like a mountain to climb. He looked at the worried mother, then at the little girl in the back seat, who was now pressing her nose against the window, watching him work. "Tell you what," Jake said, already reaching for his spare hose. "It's getting late, and I was about to close anyway. Consider this one on the house, a neighbor helping a neighbor." Sarah's eyes widened in surprise. "I couldn't possibly accept that. You're running a business, and sometimes business is about more than money," Jake replied with a gentle smile. He had already started loosening the clamps around the broken hose. "Besides, it's just a $20 part and 15 minutes of work. No big deal." As Jake worked, Sarah found herself studying this kind stranger. There was something solid and dependable about him, the way he moved with quiet confidence, the gentle way he'd spoken to her daughter. She noticed the small desk visible through the shop window, with crayons scattered across it and a child's drawing taped to the wall. "Do you have children?" she asked. "A daughter, Emma. She's 5, probably about the same age as yours." Jake tightened the new clamp and checked his work. "She usually helps me close up, but she's at a friend's birthday party today." In the back seat, the little girl had been listening to every word. Her name was Lily, and she was indeed 5 years old. She had been watching this nice man fix their car, and listening to the way he talked to her mama. There was something about his voice that reminded her of the daddies she saw at school pickup, the ones who made her mama look sad sometimes, when she watched them with their families. Lily had been thinking about this a lot lately. At school, her friends talked about their daddies, about weekend trips and bedtime stories and piggyback rides. Lily loved her mama more than anything in the world, but sometimes she wondered what it would be like to have a daddy too. Someone who could fix cars and reach the high shelves and maybe teach her how to ride a bike without training wheels. Jake finished replacing the hose and refilled the radiator with coolant. "That should do it," he announced, wiping his hands. "Clean, you're good to go." Sarah turned the key, and the engine purred to life without any of the previous grinding or steam. "I can't believe you did this for nothing," she said, shaking her head in amazement. "How can I ever repay you?" Before Jake could respond, a small voice from the back seat spoke up, so quiet that both adults had to strain to hear. "She's my mom," Lily whispered, looking directly at Jake with serious blue eyes. "Please marry her." The words hung in the air like dandelion seeds on a summer breeze. Sarah's face turned bright red, and she spun around to face her daughter. Lily, you can't just say things like that. But Jake found himself smiling, charmed by the innocent honesty of the request. Well, he said thoughtfully, that's quite an offer. But I think I should probably get to know your mom a little better first. Maybe over coffee sometime. Sarah looked mortified and touched all at once. I am so sorry. She's been asking a lot of questions lately about families and it's okay, Jake interrupted gently. Really, kids see the world differently than we do. Sometimes they see things more clearly. He paused, then added with a hopeful smile, but I meant what I said about that coffee. If you'd be interested, that is. Lily bounced excitedly in her seat. Mama, say yes, please say yes. Sarah looked at this kind man who had fixed their car and asked for nothing in return, who had a daughter, Emma's age, and crayons in his shop, who had just been propositioned by her 5-year-old and taken it with humor. And Grace, maybe Lily was on to something after all. I'd like that, Sarah said softly. I'd like that very much. As the black sedan pulled away from Henderson's Honest Repairs, Jake stood in his doorway and watched the taillights disappear around the corner. Tomorrow, he would call Sarah and they would have that coffee. They would talk about their daughters, their hopes, their fears, and the way life sometimes surprised you with unexpected gifts. Sometimes the smallest voices carried the biggest truths, and sometimes fixing a broken radiator hose could fix much more than just a car.